Welcome back, dear Lighthousers. Welcome to the part 2 of the story about one of the most mysterious, polarizing, and fascinating figures in the spiritual history, the story of Helena, aka Helena Blavatsky. Now, in part 1, if you missed that, I'm gonna put it down there in the description box. We were talking about her early life. We were talking about her travels, how she met her teacher, aka Moria. And we ended up at the point where I was saying that she met a person with whom she later on would create something special. And that special would be Theosophical Society. And we're gonna start from that point. So just let's start. After exhausting travels that I already described you in brief in the part 1, she received a message from her teacher that she has to go to the United States of America. And this is why in the year 1873, she lands in New York. So Helena would live a very modest life there. She would have an apartment in Manhattan's Lower East Side, and she would earn money from creating some ad cards. And it was then when she somehow accidentally meets this person named Anna Ballard. She interviewed her for the New York Sun, and from there, I guess everything kind of started to pick up. In fact, it is said that this is the first printed evidence where she actually talks about her experiences in Tibet. As we remember, all of the things that she described afterwards throughout her life, they all came from her memories, because during her travels, she never kept a journal or a diary that would kind of prove that she had actually done and been places where she was talking about. Said that also this is the time when she would receive this sad message from home that her father has passed away and has left her quite a fortune as inheritance. Furthermore, this is also the time when she meets a special man who will become her lifelong partner in a platonic way, and his name was Colonel Henry Olcott. So with this man, they kind of bond very quickly. She starts to tell him about her abilities, about her experiences, and they simply kind of match together very well. Now, Olcott, although his education was lawyer and he was practicing lawyer, he was also kind of like a journalist. So he picked up the story about Blavatsky and he wrote an article about her. And they become so close friends that I even gave each other nicknames, like secret nicknames. So Helena would call Olcott Meloni, and Olcott would call Helena Jack. I'm not really sure what was the idea behind these nicknames, but yeah, that's how they called each other. Now, as I said, Olcott became a huge fan of Blavatsky. He even included information about her in his book. And afterwards, he was so much influenced by her that he also took the oath of celibacy. I remember in the part 1, I already told you about that she was on it. So he took the oath of celibacy, and Helena even convinced him to become a vegetarian. Throughout the life and even after Blavatsky's death, the private life and the relationship between Olcott and Helena was discussed quite widely because people were suspicious. How can a man and a woman be so close and not have like physical relationship? But we already know how complicated was Helena's relationship and attitude towards like sexuality and intimacy. So throughout their life, they were denying that they had something more than that. But the people who didn't really like Blavatsky and who liked to spread rumors said that actually Blavatsky had some lovers, although she was kind of speaking and talking and promoting celibacy, even celibacy within a marriage. They said, no, that's not true. She had some men in her life. Blavatsky would push back these rumors by literally presenting a note from a doctor that says, I quote, Madame Blavatsky has antiflexia uteri, a strong tilting of the uterus, which looks like an inborn problem. A thorough examination showed that Madame Blavatsky was never pregnant. So, in short, she could not get pregnant. That's one thing. And another thing is that even if she would have some kind of intimate relationship with the opposite sex or whatever, she would be in huge pain throughout this process, which would also explain why she didn't really enjoy her first night after she just got married. So there is that. I have no literal other proof. I haven't found any other proof that this doctor was legit, that he was telling the truth. Maybe this is also just a rumor. But why do we even have to care about that, right? Again, but maybe we do have, since she was promoting celibacy. Anyways, this is another legend. Just take it or leave it, okay? And there were actually some rumors that she is lesbian just because when she was traveling around, she was wearing some male clothes, like pants and jackets, and people would consider that is very weird and that is how a lesbian would act. Well, I mean, your girl, she was trying to be comfortable during her travels. We all know that now it's a normal thing. During that time, maybe that was something special. However, there was another rumor that kind of, sounds weird because in some sources, allegedly, she had said that she's also a virgin, which we kind of tend to believe she was not, considering that she was married and she had her first night after marriage. I don't know what to believe. She's so confusing, but yeah, here are the legends, okay? But back to her and Olcott. It was in New York City in year 1875 that Helena Blavatsky, Olcott, and a small group of thinkers and mystics officially founded the Theosophical Society. Their mission? To form a base of the universal brotherhood of humanity, promote the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science, and also to investigate the hidden laws of nature and the powers latent in a man. Blavatsky, ever the mystic, provided the esoteric foundation. Olcott, with his organizational skill and journalistic flair, gave structure and visibility. Together, they were a force, combing East and West, intellect and intuition, logic and the occult. It is said that the money to cover Blavatsky's and Olcott's lifestyle actually came from Olcott's work, since by education he was a lawyer and earned pretty money from it. In the year 1875, Blavatsky would also start to write her book that is now known under the name Isis Unveiled. And she would claim that when she was writing this book, it wasn't actually her who was writing. There was a second consciousness coming into her and would write through her. So probably that was the teacher or Moria, whatever, but she wasn't writing. She was merely a vessel. The book was controversial in many ways, one of them being that she would quote from different religious and esoteric texts that her friend Olcott swore by she had never seen before in her life. Some historians writing about Blavatsky's phenomenon later would suggest that maybe she had a very good photographic memory and that she had read the books and could simply quote from her memory. The book was certainly criticized, in most cases because of these quotes that she didn't acknowledge and didn't reference to. So people like to know the source, of course. But even though there was a criticism, it was totally sold out. It was a commercial success. All 1,000 copies were sold within a week. Blavatsky was asked to write a sequel of the book, but she denied, because I guess her focus was really on developing her Theosophical Society at that point, which was becoming larger and more influential. In fact, there were new lodges opening in different countries. For example, now there was Theosophical Society not only in the United States, but also in London. And really well-known prominent people would join that society. Just an example is Thomas Edison. In the year 1878, Blavatsky would get her U.S. citizenship, and from there, her paths opened. So it was year 1879 when she was unhappy with her life in the United States and decided to change everything and move to a place where she would have already created some kind of connections. So she was thinking about going to India. About her friend Olcott, well, he of course wanted to follow her, and very conveniently, he found a job in India representing US in the trade sector. So both of them, they were out there going to India together. They arrived in Bombay and quickly immersed themselves in the culture and spiritual traditions of the East. Their arrival was celebrated. They were foreigners, but not British colonists, which was very important for that time. They didn't preach Christianity or superiority. They came not to teach, but to learn. Blavatsky, as we all know, said that she had studied Vedas and Buddhist religious texts, so she was speaking a language that was understandable for the people living there. This was something that was not common between the Westerners who would come and visit India or other countries who were practicing these religions and traditions. So this is how she earned a lot of respect from the locals. And there were also, of course, the other part, the people who, because of that, got very suspicious of Madame Blavatsky. After their initial stay in Bombay, the society later moved to Adyar, I hope I pronounce it correctly, near Madras, which is now Chennai. There, they would establish the international headquarters of the Theosophical Society. The property that they acquired was lush, very tropical and deeply symbolical. And Blavatsky would say that she felt like she was guided towards this place to make these headquarters exactly in this property. Her members from around the world came to study Eastern philosophy, meditate, and exchange ideas. Theosophy was growing, not just in popularity, but in ambition. Blavatsky claimed that she was still in touch with the Mahatmas, enlightened beings, or ascended masters living in remote regions of Tibet and the Himalayas. These beings, she said, communicated with her telepathically and guided her teachings of Theosophy. Blavatsky received a really intriguing invitation. She was invited to visit a city called Simla, and this invitation came from her fellow theosophist and also writer, a British man named Alfred Percy Sinnett. And of course, she accepted this invitation. This will be the beginning of another huge mystery surrounding Madame Blavatsky that was later on called the Mahatma Letters. This was a very special visit because during this visit, obviously there were other guests and she would perform a lot of different wonders. For example, materialization. So she would just sit there and in front of her nearby, she would create objects out of nowhere. For example, there is this described story of how she would manifest or materialize a cup nearby her, dug into the soil. Not that it could be put there previously, but okay, everybody believed and everybody thought that she really materialized it. Not saying that it didn't happen, that she didn't have the power, but I'm just explaining how suspicious a little bit looks, okay? But that's not the point. So Mr. Sinnett, the guy who invited her to his house, was very eager to learn more about the stories where Blavatsky would tell that the Mahatmas were communicating with her throughout different ways. And he was like, I really want to talk to Mahatmas too, so can you somehow organize me communicating with them? And this is where the mystery begins. Mr. Sinnett expressed his willingness to communicate with Mahatmas, and Blavatsky delivered. She would materialize around 1,400 letters from allegedly Mahatmas that were written to communicate with Mr. Sinnett. So, these letters would appear, she would materialize them in front of her, and there was something written to Mr. Sinnett from Mahatmas. She would not write them herself. She would magically make them appear in some kind of mystery box or chest of drawers. She would open it and there it was. There was a letter and somebody had written it, okay? Sometimes she would say that the Mahatmas would come into her like as a spirit or another consciousness, and she would write them as a vessel. So she was the vessel and Mahatmas were actually writing these letters. These letters were mainly addressed to the British Theosophist Synod and are still preserved today, so they exist. It's, in a sense, not really a legend. There are some proofs. In them, the masters revealed insights about cosmic evolution, karma, reincarnation, and hidden laws of the universe. Blavatsky always insisted she was merely a messenger. The knowledge came from these higher beings, not from her. Whether they were authentic or not, the letters added a whole new dimension to the movement and drew the attention of both devoted followers and fierce skeptics. Skeptics would say that she still wrote them or had someone to write them for her, but I will leave this for you, as in these letters you can see that the signature is totally different, as if really some other person had written them. I already said that in line with her rise, there were also people who are huge skeptics and who tried to kind of change her path of rising. They wanted to simply distract her, okay? And one of that kind of people who started this really successfully, if I can say like that, was actually at the beginning her friends. Yes, so this is the story how everything started to go down. To learn more about how it all happened, we have to move back a little bit to the time when Olcott and Blavatsky came to India at first place. It was like 1879, 1880. So when they were in Bombay, she learned that a couple of friends that she had known before from her travels, more specifically a woman named Coulomb and her husband, suddenly had gotten into poverty. So they didn't have money, they didn't have a place to live in India. And she was so happy to help them and offer them to move into their Theosophical Society headquarters in Adyar. So the deal was that they would work there in this building, in this property, as managers. She would do some housekeeping and her husband would do some like housework or repairs that was necessary, and that was all that was required from them. They had a roof over their head, they had food, so they could live there. So in short, Blavatsky was really trying to help her friends to kind of in this tough situation when they became poor. What Blavatsky didn't know is that Coulombs were the people who actually would destroy her in the future. So what happened? So yeah, they were living there, everything was fine. But when Blavatsky left the headquarters, for example, for this visit to Mr. Synod, some stuff started to happen. The people who were working in the headquarters would notice that the Coulombs, they started to behave really badly. Like they would cause arguments, they would talk back. Also, it was said that they would start to cheat and ask for money in the name of Theosophical Society, although they were not authorized to do. So basically they would go out and like just promote something or sell something and would ask for money in return as representatives from Theosophical Society, but they were just merely housekeepers, both of them. So when they learned about that, of course, they were angry. They would report to Madame Blavatsky about this, that these people, they're not really kind-hearted and they're doing some bad stuff within the framework of Theosophical Society. Society's board of control had accused Coulomb of misappropriating their funds for their own purposes and asked her to leave their center. Over time, their relationship soared even deeper, reportedly due to money, power struggles, and Emma's growing hostility toward Blavatsky's authority. Coulombs started to blackmail Blavatsky and would say that they have actual proof that would tell the world that the story about Mahatma's letters is actually like a magic trick that she has invented and is just simply fooling the world. The Coulombs completely betrayed her. So what happened? Well, it all goes back to these famous Mahatma's letters that mysteriously always appeared in this little chest of drawers in Blavatsky's room. After having the final argument with Blavatsky, presented Christian missionary magazines with letters they claimed were written by Blavatsky. Letters suggesting she had faked the Mahatma phenomena using hidden trapdoors and secret compartments. The magazines ran the story with great pleasure. It caused a scandal across India and England and was picked up even by London newspaper The Times. Blavatsky was betrayed. Coulombs had chosen to sell this story, whether true or not, to one of the biggest opponents of Blavatsky's movement, the Church. Of course, they were ready to spread the news because it would put the Church again in the good light and allow them to say, "See, we told you, she is a fraud." The accusations led the Society for Physical Research in London to investigate the case. The report, led by Richard Hodgson, was damning. It concluded that Blavatsky was one of the most accomplished, ingenious, and interesting imposters in history. So this report also included Hodgson's accusations to Blavatsky, saying that she was also a Russian spy, and only then saying that she was faking the phenomena with the Mahatma letters and her skills and abilities in general. But what was the most controversial thing about this research is that all of the claims and all of the conclusions were based merely on the Coulombs accusations. So that person who was in charge of the research actually didn't find anything additional, just this research was based on Coulombs' accusation. So it wasn't very, let's say, thorough. It wasn't very fair. They reached the goal. A lot of people started to turn away from Blavatsky, from Theosophical Society. A lot of them denounced her. Modern researchers criticized the Hodgson report for being biased, poorly conducted, and based heavily on hearsay. In fact, the Society for Physical Research itself later distanced itself from the conclusions of the report. So, was it a smear campaign, or was there some truth to the Coulombs claims? I guess that's the only question we have to figure out here. I guess we will never know. After this huge scandal, her popularity declined, and as I said, a lot of people turned away from her. However, she still managed to be popular in India. Now, soon after this situation with Coulombs, she actually left India, but not because she was ashamed, but because she was exhausted. Her health was severely deteriorating, and although her ego was bruised, she kind of maintained unshaken. She was still very much focused on her goal and still completing her mission on this earth. Blavatsky had serious health problems. She was diagnosed with Bright's disease, which is basically like a kidney disease. And it is because of her health in the year 1885, she leaves India to search for a place where she would live in a better climate. By 1885, the Theosophical Society had experienced rapid growth, with 121 lodges having been chartered across the world, 106 of which were located in India, Burma, and Ceylon. Although initially all decisions were made by Adyar headquarters, with time the lodges became more independent and were acting with their own internal rules and administration, which led to decentralization and sometimes tensions between them. Setting in Naples, Italy, in April 1885, Blavatsky began living off of a small society pension and continued working on her next book called The Secret Doctrine. Then she moved to the Kingdom of Bavaria, where she was visited by Swedish theosophist, the Countess Constance Wachtmeister, who became her constant companion throughout the rest of her life. 1886, Blavatsky was already moving around in a wheelchair. At one point, she was really close to her death, but she was saved by a doctor, also fellow theosophist, William Ashton Ellis. This allowed her to continue her work to her book, The Secret Doctrine, which now had become her life's purpose. She wasn't dying before she would have finished this book. It was so important to her to write it and to spread the message to the world. Later, when her health got a little bit better, she was able to return back to London and moved into Holland Park, the home of fellow Theosophists brothers Knightleys. She learned that London Lodge of Theosophy was not performing well, as led by Mr. Sinnett. So she established her own Blavatsky's Lodge. She continued her work and also welcomed a lot of visitors. As an example, in the year 1889, she was visited by an Indian lawyer, Mohandas Gandhi. Okay, we all know who Gandhi is. Yeah, the same Gandhi. So during that time, he was studying Bhagavad Gita, and he decided to visit Madame Blavatsky. And later on, after this visit and meeting her, he even joined the Theosophical Society, the society that Blavatsky, the lodge that she had founded. At the end, she finished the Secret Doctrine, but nobody wanted to publish this 1,500 pages thick book. And for that, she decided she's going to found her own publishing company and publish it into 2 volumes. So the first part came out in the year 1888 and the second part came out in the 1889. There are so many mysteries surrounding this book and the process of writing it because, again, Blavatsky was saying that she didn't write the book. It was Mahatmas who wrote the book. So they were like their consciousness was coming into her body and using it merely as a vessel for writing. So the Mahatmas were writing. She was just moving the hand, okay? Blavatsky allegedly wrote sections in a trance-like state, surrounded by incense and esoteric symbols, as if possessed by higher forces. Some say the Secret Doctrine was dictated to her telepathically. Hey, you can say that you don't believe that, it's a complete BS, but the following things that I'm going to tell you will blow your mind. This is why I also feel that this lady, she deserves some attention and she's very interesting. Maybe she invented some stuff, but she also knew something. So remember the time when she was living, okay? So the things that she wrote in the Secret Doctrine are the things that we are very, very much discussing at the moment and talking about them as very important topics. So how did she know them back then? Okay, I will mention some of them. I will not dive very deep into that because I believe if you want to understand, you have to read things on your own. But I'm just going to mention some things so that you understand why I am so obsessed. So she proposed that science, religion, and philosophy all stemmed from one ancient wisdom. The universe, she said, operates in vast cosmic circles, beyond what modern science can measure. Critics called it pseudoscience. Supporters called it a blueprint of the universe. Now, how many times in different media we have discussed the topic that everything actually started from some kind of mysterious and advanced ancient civilization, and that there was actually something before the Ice Age, like a civilization, advanced civilization. That Ice Age is just the ending of some kind of circle that led to this like new circle that we are now in, and that there have been like a lot of these circles that would usually end with some kind of catastrophe, and then after that like a new civilization would emerge again. How did she know? How? Another one. Blavatsky claimed humanity evolved through a series of root races, starting with ethereal non-physical beings leading up to Atlanteans and eventually modern humans. She spoke of Lemuria and Atlantis, lost continents with advanced civilizations before the ideas became even a pop culture staples. Yeah, so I will leave you with that to digest. During the winter after her book was published, there was a huge influenza epidemic in the UK, and Blavatsky caught the virus. This led to her death. So she actually died in the year 1891, May 8th. She died in a house of a woman whose name was Annie Besant. Besant was member of Blavatsky's lodge. She was also a Freemason Theosophist. And after reading the Secret Doctrine and getting to know Miss Blavatsky, she became like a huge supporter and later on took over the management of Blavatsky's lodge. The date of Blavatsky's death was later on commemorated by Theosophers as the White Lotus Day, and Blavatsky was actually cremated in Woking Crematorium on the May 11th. So this is where the story of this mysterious, magical, legendary woman ends. So Lighthousers, this is the story of Helena Blavatsky. As I said, I didn't dive very deep into Theosophy itself. I was trying just to tell you the life story of this woman who is surrounded by so many legends. I think it was so interesting. I mean, not anyone gets to have an adventurous life like that if half of it was true, of course. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment sections. What do you think? Was she really connected by Mahatmas through like her consciousness or through these letters? What do you think about that? Write down in the comments. Or maybe she was just a good storyteller and she had a really wild imagination. Also, let me know, what do you think about the Coulombs? Do they really kind of betrayed Blavatsky or do they expose her? Yeah, that would be really interesting to know. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know once again in the comments your thoughts. Make sure you have subscribed, that you're liking the video. Any kind of interaction helps to kind of push forward my channel and grow me better here. Thank you so much to one and only Patreon of my channel, David Craig. I hope you're listening or watching. Hi, have a good day. If you want to become my Patreon, here's my Patreon link. You can certainly do that too. I will be very grateful and your name will be shouted out here. Apart from that, I hope you have a lovely day. If it's not, then it's going to be very soon because there is always light at the end of the tunnel, okay? Stay happy, stay curious, and see you next time. Bye.